Good morning. It's nice to speak with you.
The same here. Good morning.
If I am arrested for DUI or DWI in Washington, D.C., what do I need to know?
What you need to know, if you're arrested, the main thing is to remain calm. And remember that your life is not over because you've been arrested for a DUI or a DWI. There are about 150 steps between the arrest and any bad consequence that could potentially happen to you as a result of that arrest.
Why should I not just plead guilty and move on with my life? Why is it a good idea for me to consult with an attorney?
Because if you, first of all, just sort of from a philosophical standpoint, you don't want to wake up in 5 years thinking, wow, I just rolled over. I think that's sort of, that would be one of the things that would keep me awake at night. Also because there are so many avenues to pursue before you even would want to think about just pleading guilty, that don't affect you. Some people think, well, if I don't just take responsibility or if I don't just plead guilty because I think I might be guilty, that I'm doing myself a disservice, but that's absolutely not the case. You're doing yourself a much better turn by fighting.
What are the consequences that somebody can face if they have a conviction for DWI or DUI?
You could, in an extreme consequence, you could face jail time. That would be if in Washington, D.C., if you have, and it stands up to scrutiny, a blood alcohol content of a 0.2 or above. Even on a first offense, you'd be facing a mandatory 5 days in jail. There are ways to reduce that a little bit with some maneuvering, but that is one of the consequences. You could face some fines, which are usually not too onerous, but the main thing also is the loss of your driver's license, which would be for at least 6 months and most likely for a year.
If a person is arrested and they have gone through a field sobriety test, are there ways that you can fight that?
Absolutely, and one of the important things to remember is when you're pulled over on a DUI stop, do not refuse to take the test. You will always do much better if you take the test, the field sobriety test, and if you take the breathalyzer test. If you don't take the breathalyzer test in Washington, D.C., that's a mandatory 1-year loss of license.
Wow.
So you don't want to do that, specifically because there's ways to challenge these tests. The field sobriety test must be performed by someone who is qualified, who's taken the NHTSA student course, if you're a police officer. Now, I'm trained as an instructor in those tests, so I know how to cross-examine a police officer and to make sure that they've done their job correctly, and they usually have not.
So can you give me an example of how you could fight the test?
Sure. For example, the walk and turn test, where someone is required, a police officer pulls you out of your car, normally at night, on a regular street with their lights flashing. The police officer has their gun, baton, mace. There's maybe another officer. Usually, I think we've all seen DUI stops where there's 6 police cars that pull up, so you're surrounded.
That's scary.
Right, it's scary, you're nervous. I know when I'm pulled over, I know I haven't been drinking. I'm nervous. My heart starts pounding, so of course you're going to be nervous. There's no chance to practice. How many people on a walk and turn, let's give you an example. For those who don't know, a walk and turn test, you have to walk usually an imaginary straight line, heel to toe, counting 9 steps up, making a small step turn that's usually not really shown to you, walk back 9 steps. How many people have done that?
I think I'd have a hard time doing that sober, especially in high heels.
Absolutely. And I can tell you this, during the instructor class, I couldn't do it sober.
Wow.
So, and the other thing to remember is that medical issues are very important. There are many people who've had knee injuries. I've had a knee injury that affect your balance. People wear orthotics. Again, you made a very good point about people in heels, because some police officers, the police officer is supposed to allow you to take off high heels. But if they don't, again, when you think about doing that 9 steps up, 9 steps back, when you're nervous and having never done it before, it's essentially a party trick gone bad.
If I were arrested for DUI or DWI, I imagine that I would be embarrassed, nervous. Maybe I wouldn't want to tell my friends and family, certainly not my coworkers. Would you be able to help me in a way that would be discreet so that I could get on with my life?
Absolutely. Well, first, the one thing to remember is that any communication between a client or even a potential client and a lawyer is protected by what's called the attorney-client privilege. So it's a secret. And that's what I always tell potential clients, is that anything you tell me is a secret. I can't tell anybody unless you allow me to. It's only by consent. So it's always discreet. And, and I take it usually a few steps further. I mean, if I'm out, because Washington, D.C. is a small community, no one knows who my clients are. And that's just not something that's ever disclosed. It's that this profession discretion is one of the highest qualities you have.
If I'm looking for a DUI attorney, what are the factors that I should be looking at in evaluating an attorney?
Well, there are a lot of factors to look at. I think, and I always tell potential clients this, is that you should always talk to more than one attorney. And in fact, you should ask the attorney you're talking to for referrals, for people they think would be good. First of all, I think it's important for the person to feel comfortable with the final decision that they make. So it's good for them to get varying opinions, various input about, their case. Second, I think it's important because you want to show confidence. And I am confident in what I do. And I think it's just very important to project that to your client. It goes back to what you were asking before about whether to plead guilty or not. My position when I'm talking to a potential client is you're not pleading guilty. You're going to trial just because it makes the potential client feel better. Because then they realize, okay, my life is not over. There's someone here who's willing to fight for me. And what I also tell clients is, and I think this is a very important quality, is what the client is paying for is not necessarily just to file some paperwork or to stand next to them in court. And that's important. What they're paying for is that at 3 a.m, I tell clients I'm up and I'm thinking about your case. Because that's what I do. That's me. And that's what you want. You want someone who is passionate about what they do, believes in your case. And frankly, that's why I charge what I charge. I mean, that's another important thing, which is price. There are plenty, and I tell clients this, there are plenty of lawyers who will charge you less. Not that I'm the most expensive person, but you get what you pay for. If you get someone who's going to charge you what you think is, ooh, this is a great deal, if that's your first thought, that's not the right person. Because you're going to you'll get a great deal. You'll get a great deal as far as a guilty plea.
If I've been arrested for DWI or DUI and I am looking at different attorneys, what makes you stand out? Why should I give you a call?
Well, again, I think this goes back to what you would look for in any attorney. First, you want to look for experience, and I've had 15 years of experience. You want to look for someone who's interested in the subject matter. Someone who goes to CLEs or continuing legal education classes. I travel all over the country going to classes to try and continue to try and educate myself and keep myself abreast of what's going on. Because
in fact, that's where we are right now.
Exactly. And particularly in DUI cases, because it's so technical, there's a lot of science involved, which frankly what makes it very interesting to me. There's a lot of scientific issues, and that's always changing. People know, 50 years ago, the way they tested for DUI is completely different than the way they test now, and it's only going to get more complicated and different. The trend now is going to be going towards use of infrared technology, and that's going to be a whole other area to educate yourself on. So I think it's very important to understand that. Besides experience, you want someone, frankly, results in court, there's no magic bullet. It's, are you willing to work hard? And that goes back to being up at 3 a.m. thinking about your case. That is, frankly, that's it. Are you willing to work on the case? Are you interested? Are you passionate about it?
I hope you sleep sometimes.
I try.
If I don't want to go to trial, if I really just want to get the case resolved, do you have relationships with prosecutors and with court staff that might help you just get the thing resolved before trial?
What I tell clients is if you think that there's some sort of magic connection, like I can make a phone call and make this go away, and particularly if there's a lawyer who tells you that, they're lying. Because first of all, it's illegal. And second of all, it just doesn't happen, particularly in Washington, D.C. There's so much scrutiny. It just doesn't happen. It's not something I would ever do. That being said, there are people that I've known for 15 years that I have relationships with. Not that they're necessarily going to say, oh, well, I like you, so I'm going to dismiss the case. But there's ways that they can make things smoother, particularly with, for example, with scheduling. I'll give you an example. Let's say a potential client comes to me and says, well, I was given a date to come to court from the police. They let me go, but they said I have to come to court on August 15th. I have to be out of the country on a business trip. I have to be in Hawaii on August 15th. I'd planned this trip for 6 months. That's something where I can say, okay, I'll talk to the prosecutor and I'll say, look, can we just change this date? The person won't be here, but I promise they'll be here on August 25th. That's something that I can do.
That's a very valuable service. All right. So last question, David, you seem to me like you're a real fighter for your clients. What motivates you to want to help people in a DUI case?
I think it's because it's a lot of people who wouldn't normally be involved in the criminal justice system get caught up. And they don't understand, and it's a rude awakening for people who think, you know what, I do good things in life, I have a family, and the police are never going to bother me. And all of a sudden they're thrust into this world where they have no control. And that's why people come to you and come to me and they say, and they're panicked and they look like the world has ended. And to me, that's why I want to help, because that's really, I can take that away. I can make that better.
That's great. David, thank you so much.
Thank you.